Welcome to my YouTube channel, Everything Medical. Today's video is all about an approach to METAB essay in exam. How to write METAB essay in exam, how to approach this question in exam. That is all we shall be discussing on this video, right? This video is both for MBBS students and for BSc students that offers metabolism and pathways in their preclinical studies. Before I start, if you are coming across my channel the first time, don't hesitate to subscribe, share our video, like and comment so that it will give us a keep going platform to keep making videos that will help students in passing medical school. Let's start. Now, before I start with the approach to attempt METAB essay or to answer METAB essay in exam, let's quickly write down some metabolic reaction which occurs in each of the segments of metabolism. Recall that metabolism is divided into three: catabolism, which is for degradation; we have amphibolism, which is the cross-link or the crossroad between catabolism and anabolism; we have anabolism, which is biosynthesis, right? So these are some reactions which occurs under the headings of the types of metabolism. First, we have glycolysis, we have glycogenolysis, we have beta oxidation of even chain fatty acid. Here we have TCA cycle, we have urea cycle, and we also have glycogen metabolism. On this area, we have gluconeogenesis, we have HMP shunt, we have glycogenesis, we have fatty acid synthesis, we have cholesterol biosynthesis, we have ketogenesis. So these are some of the reactions which occur on anabolism. Likewise, this on amphibolism and catabolism. Now, when you are being asked the question, see, metabolism or biochemistry generally is not like physiology or anatomy. You don't go cutting corners. You don't tell stories. When you know it, you know it. When you don't know it, you don't know it. Simple. It's as simple as ABCD, right? When you're being asked a question on metabolism, go straight to the point. Do not tell stories. For example, when you're being asked, write on glycolysis. It's true that glycolysis has some other reactions which occur in it apart from the metabolic pathways, right? Now, for example, if you are being asked, write on glycolysis, first thing you do is to write the steps because they did not specify the exact component of glycolysis you should write upon, right? So we have steps, we have introduction, we have organ of metabolism, we have cellular compartment, we have regulation and applied Now, these are the basic outline in writing METAB essay that involve metabolic pathways. When you're being asked, to write on metabolic pathways, this is what you are going to use. But there are some metabolic pathways that have additional peculiar outline, such as TCA cycle. Now, this outline goes with TCA cycle, but there are some other outline of TCA cycle you should also add, such as the catabolic role of TCA cycle, the anabolic role of TCA cycle, and the anaphylactic role of TCA cycle. Pay attention. When you are being asked to write on anabolic role of TCA cycle as a question, you do not need this outline to write it. Just go straight to the point. Or when you are being asked to write the regulation of TCA cycle, which involve the competitive and non-competitive inhibitors, you don't need to use this outline. Just go straight to the point. On the area of glycolysis, this outline works 100%. But remember, there are some shunt and cycles that occurs in TCA or that occurs in glycolysis, which is the Corey cycle and the 2,3-BPG shunt or apollo cycle. Those two shunt and cycle are also important, right? Just go straight to the point. Do not tell stories. Likewise, on glucogenesis, this outline works for it, but you have to understand that this pathway has a precursor. It has a precursor called, there are almost 4 precursors of glucogenesis, right? You should add it as the outline. METAB questions are self-authored questions, except you are being asked to write on the applied, or maybe you are asked in exam an applied question in exam. That is when you are going to link pathways. That one is based on your understanding, because when you are being asked an applied question on METAB in exam, you have to link it. Maybe you are being asked what is the relationship between GLUT4 of good transporter and diabetic patient. That one does not need to come and start drawing pathways and all these things. It's dependent on your understanding, what you understood, right? Because you know that GLUT4 does not work in diabetic patient because GLUT4 is insulin dependent. So if there's no insulin in a diabetic patient, that means GLUT4 is deranged. So it is your understanding that works for all those ones, especially for applied questions in exam. But when you are being asked a straightforward question, like state the precursors of glycogenesis, you don't need this outline. Or what are the regulation of glycogenesis, where you are going to talk about the hormonal regulation and also talk about the what allosteric regulation, because you are going to mention the glycogen synthase, right, in this pathway as it's what allosteric regulation, because that is the rate limiting enzyme, right? So when you are being asked also on regulation majorly involve 3 things: gene regulation, hormonal regulation, and allosteric regulation. Not all pathways have what gene regulation, but a pathway must have what allosteric what regulation. But not all pathways also have what hormonal regulation. So you should note what the pathway is all about. Now, what am I saying in essence is that when you are asked on regulation, do not start telling stories. You have to give it a heading, either gene regulation or hormonal regulation or what allosteric regulation. Do not just start writing the regulation that way. Give it a heading so that they will know that yes, you know what you are writing. TCA cycle is not a small metabolic pathway. It is the most metabolic pathway we have in human reaction, right? Urea cycle also is similar to TCA cycle, because urea cycle occurs in cell cytosol, and it also occurs in the cell what mitochondria, right? So, and also it has a relationship involving the fumarate, right? Because you might be asked in an exam, why is urea cycle compartmentalized? It's because of the presence of fumarate, right? That is a medical board exam question that involve your reasoning before you could answer it. That one does not involve writing steps or reactions that way. So these are the basic outline in writing METAB essay, but it dependent on the question you are being asked. Imagine being asked, outline the fate of Propanikoe That means you have to start from the Pupanikore, which generates Osinikore to TCA cycle, which are 3 steps. You don't need this outline. Just write the pathway for them and leave, right? So this pathway just like, I mean, this outline just like those pathways, like maybe add node oncogenesis or write on oncogenesis. This is the outline you use, plus the precursors and the key enzymes. Recall that there exists a cycle here and a shuttle, which is called Cahir cycle or glucose alanine cycle, and also malate aspartate shuttle. Remember those shuttles and the cycles. They are so much important on the pathways. Do not rush METAB question. Understand it. This is how to write it, the basic outline for pathways. Moreover, when you are being asked to write something inside the pathway, you don't need this outline, just go straight to the point. But when you are being asked, write on TCA cycle, write on urea cycle, write on glycolysis, write on glycogenolysis, write on method oxidation, write on this, and this. This is what you are going to use, the outline. But other pathways, there are some pathways there that have their own peculiar outline that you should add up with this. Endeavor to add it up. You have to add it up in the exam. So that is what I'm trying to say, and that is how it goes. This is just like the basic outline to write it in exam. It is only in applied question in exam that you can link plenty pathways, and that one is dependent on your understanding. You can't cram pathways and come and write applied question in exam. It's not possible. It is dependent on your understanding, right? And I've used one example here concerning the GLUT4 and diabetic patient, right? So that is how it works. I believe with this, you can know how to attempt question in exam. Do not just rush question. Understand it. Use the outline. Every metabolic pathway must have steps. They must have introduction. They must have organ of metabolism. Which organ is it occurring? And this organ is same thing as the site. They must have cellular compartment. Is that is occurring in the cell cytosol or mitochondria, or is occurring on the both? They must have regulation, right? Even apply biochemistry. So these are just like the standard outline to write it, the basic outline to write it in exam for all these pathways. I repeat, some pathways have their own peculiar outline, such as the TCA cycle. You will add up the anabolic role, amphibolic role, and also an anapyrotic role, right? That one is basically for TCA cycle. For the case of glucogenesis, you can also add the precursors and the key enzymes also. So this is the basic outline to write metabolic pathways in exam. Endeavor to implement it. Understand METAB questions. It's not question you should rush. And when you know it, you have known it. When you don't know it, you can't write it down in exam. So that is it. Thank you so much for watching.